Parashat HaShavua, Parashat Bo. Once again, we're starting on the second Aliyah because the first Aliyah is online already. People will get bored of me, so I want people to keep watching. And also, if we do the first Aliyah, so you remember it. Okay, let's go. It says, we're on chapter 10, verse 12. And this is after Pharaoh has told... what happened was, just to start off, just a quick review, is that Pharaoh, Moshe and Aaron came to Pharaoh and said, Pharaoh, if you don't let the Jews go, God is going to send the plague of Arbe, of the locusts amongst you. And the people there say, and they walk out, okay? Then Moshe and Aaron walk out. So the people say to Pharaoh, how long is it going to be until you let these people go? Don't you understand that we're losing our own entire country? So let them go. So Pharaoh calls him back and says the famous line, so who's your guest list? Who do you want to go with you? Moshe says, we want everybody, our old, our young, our animals. And Pharaoh says, simply put, that you're a liar. You want to escape with all the people. You want to be the freedom fighter here, but it's all conspiracy. And what's his reasoning? Because God doesn't want children at their service. God wants adults and only males at the service. God, if you think about old idolatry, the women would stay at home, the kids would stay at home, or they'd be sacrificed, either one. But it would be the adults who are serving God. She said, I know gods, I'm one of them anyway. I know who I want to serve me, and I don't want the children there. Too much noise, right? Too much noise, whatever they would claim. And also, no women and animals, he understood though. He wasn't even fighting on the animals. Okay, but he chases them away. So now, Hashem, that's where we're starting. V'yomer Hashem a Moshe. So Hashem said to Moshe, Netei yadcha al Eretz Mitzrayim, stretch your hand over the land of Mitzrayim ba'arbe, for the sake of arbe, for the sake of locusts. Okay, you're going to. That's what's going to happen. V'ya'al al Eretz Mitzrayim, and the locusts will come up on the land of Mitzrayim. And it's also arbe. You're seeing right here when it says Vaya'al, by the way, that Arbe is a collective term. And that's why it's Vaya'al, and it will come. Instead of Ya'alu, which would mean a lot of Arbe, the plural, there's Vaya'al, so it's also the Vav conversive, by the way, does not operate here because it's the Vav with the Shva underneath. I'm doing it because you guys know grammar at this point. Right. So it's the Vav with the Shva, so that tells you it remains in the future. So that's V'ya'al. And why is it future? Because God is speaking to Moshe to tell him what to say. So he's not going to say it in the past, and it went up, and it will go up. Tell him, stretch out your hand, and it will go up on Mitzrayim. V'yochal, and again, once again, it's just a regular vav here. And it will eat, the locusts will eat, al et kol es va'aretz, all the grass of the field, ekol asher hishir barad. Anything that the barad, that the hail left. That's what he's telling him. You want to do that, okay?
Wow, it's a double whammy.
Right. Okay. So then what happens is,
How long did you say the plagues last for?
1 year. The plagues lasted for 1 year altogether. Altogether was 1 year.
All the plagues?
All the plagues.
But each plague...
The plagues lasted, according to Rashi, they were warned for 3 weeks. The plague took 1 week. And then we would start again.
Wow.
Okay. But they never overlapped each other?
No.
Okay.
You mean in succession?
Yeah,
so,
as
no.
the hail is going away, the locusts...
No. As a matter of fact, if that would have happened, that's what Ramban says... That's what Moshe wanted to happen. Because if that would have happened one after the other,
immediately the next
right. If it would have happened one after the other, then Pharaoh could never have resisted that. Nobody could resist that.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that when the plague ends, and you have 3 weeks to recover.
How you have to, if you want him to repent, don't you have to give him time?
Right. So I'm saying, but you have to have time to think both ways. In other words, if I don't have, for instance, when it snows every single day here, okay, because of lake, blah blah, whatever the ridiculous excuse the weathermen want to give this. Bottom line is, it's snowing every day. You get tired of it, okay. But when the sun comes out, like it did today, we suddenly forget all the snow and all the pain in the neck of shoveling that we had. We just go out there like sun worshippers, and
there's nothing wrong.
Nothing wrong. It's beautiful. It's even warm. Look at the melting. It's really not melting. It's 21 degrees. There's no melting going on, but we convince ourselves that it's melting because it's so beautiful outside, and we forget that there is inclement weather. Okay, but when it keeps going every single day, it just gets depressing. Okay, so here, if the plagues would have gone one after the other, you would have had 10 plagues. So that, let's say each one lasts a week. So 10 weeks of plagues. There's no way that Pharaoh could have resisted. Not so long. He would have given it a long time ago, because it would have gone one to one. So here, the reason Hashem is doing it, and that's the real story behind this. The reason Hashem gives so much time is so that Pharaoh does have time to think about it and to decide what he wants to do. Do I want to let him go? Do I not? Again, when I'm in the midst of it, we all want to get rid of the pain. But if I'm going to do true teshuvah, so then that would have meant that Pharaoh would have said to the people, okay, go. And nothing would have stopped him. Right? He would have had real remorse for what he had done and learned his lesson and said, okay, please leave. Here's your extra money to go, because we have to give you money too. After all, you worked for us for 210 years. We owe you a little bit of a paycheck, so that would have been it. But they didn't do that. But that's, so the way Rashi says it, just to answer the question again, is 3 weeks were warning. Final week was the plague. Okay, so what happens is, now here's also something very interesting. Listen to the language of the pasuk here. Moshe was told to stretch your hand forth. He'll bring the locusts. So Moshe stretched out his staff over the land of Mitzrayim. And Hashem caused a east wind to blow in the land. The entire night, the entire day and night. It was morning, and the east wind, Nasa et ha'arbeh, carried the locusts. Now, if just based upon that, without any midrashim even, what would you think? Is it God, or is it nature?
Oh, you're saying it would look natural.
It's natural. The wind was blowing. The east wind was blowing.
Maybe it sounds like he's leaving it open for Pharaoh to make an excuse.
Correct. And nothing is, because if you're telling me the locusts would have come, stretch forth your hand, the locust will come. What would have been the best thing to do? Stretch forth your hand, bang, the locusts drop down. That's the end of it. Oh, you are the man. You are the man. Okay, such magic you do. Well, your magic is scary, and I'm going to be scared. But no, that didn't happen. He stretched forth his hand, and now we have the wind's coming. The east wind is coming, blowing the entire night through the day. And
before the locusts got there.
Then the locusts are carried by the wind. So, what kind of miracle is that?
So what if Moshe or Aaron would say, yeah, but you saw what he did. He stretched out his hand with the staff, and the wind started.
You knew it was happening. You're good magicians. You knew it was happening, and you took advantage of the situation. That could be what he's arguing. But like I said, the major thing is that God did not use supernatural methodologies to get it there.
Well, doesn't up to this point so far? Aren't we able to say that the appearances could be all natural effects?
Absolutely. They were always all natural effects. And that was, again, a test. And there was anybody who is looking at this logically, is going to say that it's God. Why? By the way, why? Because and I've said this many times, on tape and off tape, if the weatherman always gave the exact and were never wrong in what the weather would be, then we would be obligated to listen to them. We'd be obligated. If they were always right, it's going to be a hurricane at this time. It's going to come at 3 o'clock. It's going to stop at 5. If the snow is going to start, like they try to do here, they try to say the snow will start at 2, it will end at 6.
Yeah.
Okay. If they were always absolutely right with all their
it would be an exact science.
Right.
There would be no fighting it. Yeah.
Right. So then, the earthquake is going to hit at this time. If they were every single time right, we'd be obligated to listen, because you're an idiot if you don't listen.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I listen to you?
Yeah.
It's saving my life. I can tell the guy, plow my driveway is going to be over at 4 o'clock. Please be here at 5. I need to be at the appointment by 6. Done. But the fact of the matter is they're not right. Okay? And they mess up many times. And we usually are happy when they mess up when they're wrong. And of course, when they're not wrong, when they're right, well, if they're wrong, we're expecting sun and they said sun and it rained, we're not happy either. So, whatever the case is, but it's not exact science. Okay? So here, everything Moshe said to Pharaoh came true.
Yeah.
That was the problem. Every single time he said, this is going to happen at this time, blah, 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 blah. The first time, you have to experiment. Let me see. And my magicians can do it on top of everything else. Second time, but third time, when the third time when they came with lice, and the magician said, we can't do this. This is the finger of God. At that point, they're already saying, this is from God. Leave me alone. I can't do anything. They're no longer worthwhile to be brought, because they're not going to reinforce him. Bolster Pharaoh and his decision to think that is happenstance, or that they're being punished for something else, as we said last week. Last week. But here, again, God is using very... and which is why, by the way, if you go to Exodus decoded by, what's his name? The guy who made the Titanic. James Cameron, thank you. You watch movies? I thought you watched movies. Okay. James Cameron.
Yeah.
And read books.
No, I didn't know. Seriously, I didn't know you got. I didn't realize you went to movies. That was not a joke. Reading books, I know you do, but I didn't know you went to movies. But James Cameron wrote. He made a show decoding Exodus, where he showed that all these things happen through natural means. You remember we showed it here.
Yeah.
We showed it here in this very room. Okay, but the point is that everything could be put down to natural things, and that is what the real test is. That's the real test.
So Pharaoh is just refusing, even though everything Moshe said so far has happened.
Correct.
He's just refusing. He
doesn't want to do it. So now, if I'm Pharaoh and I heard and I felt the wind blowing, I know that. Okay, you stretched your hand forth, and you're a good magician. You're very nice. Bottom line is that you didn't really bring it. Now, it's going to be interesting what happens, because that's how we certainly could have been thinking. And now we go on next verse, Yudalid. So 14, Vayal ha'arbe. And the locust went up, I'll call it Eretz Yisrael, on throughout the entire land of Egypt, except for where, by the way?
Goshen.
Except for Goshen, because the Jews...
Is Goshen in the valley?
It's Goshen in the valley. I don't know why.
It goes over the entire land of Egypt, over. And if Goshen is in a valley, it could be, that's how they say it. So
No, that does mean over. They missed it. They're saying all parts where everybody's living, except for the Jews. Okay. So...
Like a king was over the land.
Right. Okay. So, Vayanach b'chol gevul Mitzrayim, and they rested in all. That's what this says. They rested in all of the border of Mitzrayim. Kaved Ma'od was a very heavy plague. Lefanav lo hayakein arabeh kamohu. Before this, there was never such a plague of locusts like this. V'acharav lo hayakein, and afterwards, it will never be one. Now that's interesting too. That is a prophecy. In other words, to say beforehand, there was never that's just knowing history. Was there anything before? But when you say acharav, there was never, afterwards, that will never be like that, that's a very dangerous situation. If you're the writer of the book, this is for all the apocorsim out there, okay, that you like to deal with. If somebody is writing a book, the worst thing to do is to prognosticate the future. You just can't do that because you can be disproven very easily. So what you would say is, before this, there was never a plague like this. Okay, I can't, fine, I'm not going to argue with you. But after that, and that can mean today in 2018, after that, there was never that way. And which is what I said last week on Shabbos, that the fact of the matter is, there has never been, according to Ramban, and certainly until his time, and even through now, as far as I know, there's never been another locust infestation in Egypt. Yeah.
What were the borders of Egypt? And were
What were they?
And were the locusts contained to the borders, or they spill over a little bit? It says the locusts were contained in the borders of Egypt. Does that mean they only stayed in the borders of Egypt?
Yes.
So
That's the miracle of it.
I know, but once you go into, it's not probably the borders that are today.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not sure what modern day Egypt is the same as the borders of the ancient Egypt.
Yeah, I don't know. The phone is straight. But yeah, like once it goes into the desert, you kind of lose what the borders are. Because it's just Sahara.
Well, we're looking at the cities more. I would have to say we're looking at this where people are.
The
It wouldn't. If you're asking me, were the locusts where people were not living? I would suggest the answer would be no.
Oh, well, there's no food.
What?
Well, there's no food, probably not.
Right. So I'm suggesting that it would only be in inhabited areas. So if you're going to say they weren't in the desert, I would agree with you. And that wouldn't really be a contradiction to the text because the text is not really arguing on uninhabited places. Okay. But what I'm saying is that to say that afterwards,
No, I got that.
right? Okay, so that's our thing to say. Now Rashi brings something down on that. He says, wait a second. It says in the days of Yoel, which is a prophet Joel, it says before this it would never be like this in the world. So how could it say it again? It says there was no locust in a different place. Like this was never in the world. So how can you say that? So he wants to say that in the time of Moshe, it was one type of locust, and that's what never happened again. Time of Joel, so there were different types of creepy crawlies that were going through the land. Okay, fine. But interesting enough, Rashi picks on that and says, how can you say that afterwards there would not be like this, yet in the times of Yoel, there was an infestation. But it wasn't the same type of infestation. Fine. So that's how he answers it.
In Egypt?
I have to assume that only because it would make sense. But you'd have to look at Joel. But it would make sense. Does he say it here? No, he doesn't say it here. But I would guess. I'm guessing on that. I've always assumed that to be the case. I never went through Yoel to see if that was Mitzrayim or if it was somewhere else. But it would make sense. Okay. So now, although we'll go against Ramban. That's my only problem with it. Because Ramban says that there was never an infestation after this. So that would be the question. Where was Yoel's... it does. By the way, that's another question also. When it says Achrav lo yakain, that afterwards it would never be like this. There would never be like that. Does that mean just in Mitzrayim, or does that mean there would never be another infestation to the magnitude that Egypt felt it anywhere? And if that's the case, Yoel can now speak and say, "We had one that was never like this before." Okay, and of course that would be a different one. So it would be essential. I have to go to Yoel and see where it's actually taking place. Either that or ask Rabbi Google, and he'll tell you where it's taking place too. Okay. How are you? So what happens is like this. Vayecha said ein kol haaretz. So it covered the arbeh, the locust covered the eye of all of the land. How do they say that? The entire surface of the entire, the surface of the entire land. V'tech shach haaretz, and the land was darkened. And what happened? Vayochal ekol esav haaretz. So the locust ate up all of the grass of the field, or all of the products of the field. Ve'ekol priya ate, and all of the fruit of the trees. Ashehote barad, again, which the barad, the hail had left. V'lo notar kol yerach be'ez ve'esav asada v'kol eretz Shefan. And there was nothing remaining of all of the greenery in the trees and the grass of the fields in all of the land of Mitzrayim. So they were doing their job in taking everything out. What happens? Right? And so this time, Pharaoh doesn't wait too long. Paro hurried. They called Moshe Aaron to call Moshe and Aaron v'yomer, and he said, Chatati la'Hashem Elokeichem, I have sinned to Hashem your God, v'lachem and you. Yes.
Since Pharaoh heard, doesn't mean he himself or he sent someone to them?
He went. He called them quickly. He went to them.
Okay.
It makes sense that he did. Okay, so this foreigner says that he wanted the locusts removed before they could devour the roots of the vegetation, thereby causing permanent damage, which is why he hurried. Yeah.
When I was just looking back to make sure when it mentions like the plagues of beast and I think lice. Anyway, Pharaoh brings them into the palace and asks them to get rid of it, and then they get rid of it, and then he keeps the Jews anyways.
Right.
What happened to the plague of blood? And it just did it end by itself.
It ended, right.
But
After 7 days.
Right, but Pharaoh never asked them to end it.
No.
Because they could buy the water. Right, 'cause they could, yeah.
Right. They could buy the water, so he didn't ask him, and he didn't. Right, he didn't ask him. Right.
Okay. It just ran its course.
Say it again.
It just ran its course and went back to normal water.
To go back to no, I mean, ultimately it would have. I don't know if it went back right away, but it's it's like when the oil spill. We had an oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico by who was the BP oil, right? Okay, but that would have been. I just came here, so probably around 7-8 years ago. No, so I'm here 10 years, so probably 9 years ago when the BP to oil spill. That was with Bush, right? That was Bush?
Yeah.
Or, no, that was Obama. Obama had that, right? Whatever. So, the point is that they were saying, it's going to be polluted for 100 years.
Yeah.
What happened? It cleared up in about a year. It was all gone. There's no trace. They say there's no trace of it. So I don't know what happened to the oil, but okay, whatever. But could Hashem have cleaned it up? Hashem can do anything. Did he let it run the natural course? Could have been. I don't know. But it doesn't seem that didn't seem to bother Pharaoh as much as the frogs, as the lice, as everything else. Those were attacking the bodies. And like you said, you could get bottled water. So you had to buy the water. Okay, buy the water. So we make an industry. But nobody was being hurt by that, per se.
Think of the frogs coming out of the water. It's not frogs coming out of the blood. It's just water.
Right. Well, again, that would have been a month later.
Right. Yeah.
So let's not forget, it wasn't blood, frogs. Boom, boom, boom. Right. It was blood, clear the water. So they had about 4 weeks, 3 weeks to clear the water. If the Gulf of Mexico could clear out in a year from some dirt, from oily dirt. So I'm guessing this, whatever caused the blood, would have been gone also in a week, or a little more than a week. So then you would have had. Now God can bring the frogs. Okay. Again, you have to understand. We look at it and we know there's miracles involved here. But if I'm just watching this go on, it's an eco disaster, to use the words we use today. So, okay, it gets into the newspaper a couple of days, and we look at all the dead stuff. Wait a second. We look at all the dead fish, and we smell the dead fish. But like I said, once the news cycle stops, it's gone. Yeah.
Remember the frogs?
Say again?
The plague of frogs?
Frogs, yeah.
When Pharaoh wanted them gone, Moshe had them go away, but they all died on where they were put on mounds.
Correct.
Did that last through all?
They had to clean up.
Yeah, I know, but did that through the entire
3 weeks.
No, like in the cleaning up process, how long does that take?
I don't know.
All those trouble.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure that I'm sure they had a DPW that got rid of the stuff pretty quick. Okay. I mean, they had plenty of slaves. It wasn't like it was so hard to clear the stuff out. Okay. So, like I said, so here is, and he says, and again, he's saying chatati. Why is he saying chatati? Well, he already said I sinned before. Why is he saying again I chatati? Okay, so you can argue the same thing I said before. The chatati is I sinned because I didn't let you go, but he's recognizing I sinned. Okay, I sinned, fine. And against you because I didn't do proper. And he says, and now, please pick up my sin. In other words, lift my sin up. Forgive me, in other words. Also this time. Vehetiru laHashem Lokechem. And plural, this plural, hatiru. Pray. So he's talking to both Moshe and Aaron. Pray to Hashem, your God. I'm sorry. Vehetiru. Yeah, to Hashem, your God. And remove from upon me only this death. So Rashi says, Ramban says, where is it? I'm trying to get to it. He says, why did he say hatiru? Why is he doing that at all? And again, why is he saying, please forgive me? So he says, derech kavod, because who should be asking to forgive him? God, not Moshe. Granted, I sinned to you and to God, but he says, Sana chatati, please forgive me. Derech kavod leMoshe. This was a way of honor to Moshe. Why? Because Moshe was Paro's Elohim, or Elohim, judge. And I guess you could look at him as a God. V'gadol ma'od be'eretz Mitzrayim, and also very great in the eyes in the land of Mitzrayim. Then he says, and pray, plural, to both of them. Why do you say to both? Kikain Yomar Paro. The Ramban wants to suggest that is always what Paro said. He never said to one of them. He just never spoke to Moshe. Why? Because Moshe and Aaron always came. There was a package deal. It was never Moshe came by himself. So I'm going to give kavod to both of you. Both of you pray on my behalf. Even though ki yodeya Paro ki Moshe hu amachi, even though he knew that Moshe was really the one who was going to intercede on his behalf, Kiken Amar Lo, because he said to him, because Moshe said to Pharaoh, when Pharaoh said, get rid of the frogs, Lamatai Atir Lecha, when should I daven for you? When do you want me to daven? When do you want me to daven? Okay. And then I'll daven to Hashem. So Ephrosh Kapai, and he says further, I will spread forth my hands to Hashem. And Moshe never spoke in the language in a plural. He never wanted a lie to come up from his mouth. So he said, I'm going to do it. So Pharaoh, even though Pharaoh is saying hatiru, he's only doing that als kavod. He's doing that out of respect for both Moshe, for Aaron at that point, but also Moshe. And he doesn't want to get them angry. After all, he is insulting them by not having them, by not letting them, by not giving. If he would say to Moshe, "Pray for me," and dismiss Aaron, that would be a lack of respect. And why would you want to deal with that when you have the plagues upon you? So let's cover all our bases. So what happens? Vayetzemi in Paro, and so he went out from Paro, v'yatar Hashem, and he davened to Hashem. He entreated Hashem. V'yavoch Hashem ruach yam chazak ma'od, and once again, Hashem turned the wind. He brought the wind up, a very strong wind. Vayisa et ha'arbe, and he carried the arbe. V'yitka'eu yama, blew them into the sea, as it were. Hurled them, as he says, hurled them into the sea. Yamasuf, the Reed Sea. Lo nishar arbe echad. Not one locust remained. Chol gavul Mitzrayim. In all of the borders of Mitzrayim. So you would think they'd be overjoyed about that, right? Get rid of the locust. Everything is good. Okay? So what happens? Rashi says, when it says lo nish'ar arba echad, why the extra words of not one locust remained? Al famaluchim shemalchu mehem. Even the salted locusts that they made were gone. In other words, you have locusts, right? People eat grasshoppers or locusts. They eat them. Apparently they salt them, and if you salt them, they must be a good thing to have. I don't know. What?
I've also seen them in some grocery stores, gas stations, grasshoppers dipped in chocolate.
Grasshoppers dipped in chocolate. But nonetheless, you had this, and so they also that went away. So he took everything away. Thereupon Hashem strengthened. And so what happens? So again, everything is missing. And what's the next verse? Vayichazek Hashem et le Paro. Hashem made Paro's heart strong. By the way, it doesn't say stubborn. You know, everybody says, it doesn't even say it hardened his heart. It means, it does say, they translate correctly, strengthened the heart of Pharaoh. Because when we say hardened heart, we're deciding that he made him stubborn. Or when I say Yechazek Hashem et le Paro, he made Paro stubborn, we've decided, we've interpreted that word. And instead of just letting the Torah speak for itself, he strengthened the heart of Pharaoh, whatever that means. In other words, he gave him a way to think, to think his way out of it, and to say, oh, this is really not from God. So he gives him, that bit of strength that he can come out with a new excuse every time. And as a result, Lo shilach et bnei Israel, he did not send forth the Bnei Israel to freedom. And he says here, in the article, he says, God changed the east wind, which brought the locusts, to a west wind that blew them away. Not a single locust remained, as Rashi says, not even those that Egyptians had preserved for food. Thereupon, Hashem strengthened Pharaoh's heart, again, an illustration of the principle, if one wishes to contaminate himself, the way is open for him. For Pharaoh was insincere. He wanted only to rid himself of the plague. Yeah.
So the locusts came in from the west? East?
The wind blew it in from the east, blew them out with the west. Say it again? They were brought in with the east wind, right? And they blew out with the west wind.
So, okay, yeah, they were come back from where they came. They went from where they came.
Well, they were hurled into the sea. They didn't make it out alive.
No, but
the locusts didn't make it out alive. They didn't come from the sea. Well, they came across, so I'm guessing.
They came from the east and then thrown further that way. Like, I guess to the west, to the Sahara.
Correct. It was sent back the other way, right?
Back to death.
Right. Yeah, and it says they were hurled into the sea, so it's interesting. Everybody's ending up in the Yam Suf.
Yeah, that's what I said about the Egyptians. Not one of them was left.
Right, so there you go. So everybody seems to be ending up in the Yam Suf. The Yam Suf becomes a real garbage pit. Okay. Yeah, with all these. Huh?
The birds are happy.
I'm just. Let's hope so. Let's hope. Okay. So now what happens? Vayomer Shema Moshe. So Hashem says to Moshe, "Teyadcha al Shemayim, stretch forth your hand on over the heavens, v'choshech al Eretz Misrayim, and there would be darkness over the land of Misraim v'yamish choshech, and the darkness will be tangible." That's how they're translating that. They're going to feel it. Okay. Now, where is it? Okay. So what happens? So Moshe stretches forth his hand over the heavens. So there was this thick darkness over the entire land of Mitzrayim for 3 days. As a result, lo ra'u ish et achiv, a man could not see his brother. Lo kamu ish mitachtav shloshet yamim, a man could not stand up from where he says could not stand from his place for 3 days. Ulchol ben Israel bad, for all ben Israel, haya or ben Moshe, there was light in their place. Go ahead, ask your question. I thought you raised your hand. Okay. See, when I'm looking down, I see him moving. Just so I see. Okay. So Rashi says, what's going on with the dark? He says, Choshech shall ofil, the darkness of this thick darkness, that a man could not see his brother for 3 days, and then another 3 days that was doubled, and they couldn't stand up from where they were. So he says, if the person was sitting, he could not stand up. If he was standing, he couldn't sit down. He was stuck in place. I don't know why, if the person was standing, they couldn't sit down, but nonetheless, if they were, right, I'm not sure why they couldn't, but nonetheless, as according to Rashi, that's what it means, that it was a thick type of darkness. And he says, now, Rashi, the Gemara, the Midrash is asking, Rashi is bringing it down, why did Hashem bring darkness upon the people? Yeah.
How would the Egyptians know it was 3 days?
They don't need to know. We're telling.
Right.
The Torah is telling us.
Days, normally, I'm just wondering. Better question. Did the Egyptians, when they got out of the darkness, did they know 3 days had passed?
Possibly, but Ramban says, according to the Ibn Ezra, that when the Ibn Ezra would travel over the Atlantic Ocean, from where he was to go to Egypt, England, many times they hit very thick fog, in which you did not know if it was day or night, and it would last like that. So apparently they had a way to keep time, because they knew what time it was, unless they got the paper. I'm not sure what the paper would say, but so they may have known what the days were, but or would have found out later. I'm not sure. But it seems that they, just as Ibn Ezra said, you could not tell the day because of very thick fog. So also they may not have been able to know until somebody told them. Okay. So again, Rashi says, why did Hashem have to bring this darkness upon him? And the answer is, Shayu b'Yisrael ba'otu ador rishaim. There was amongst the Bnei Israel wicked people. You wrote similar say, and those people did not want to leave Mitzrayim. They were comfortable in Mitzrayim. They had land. They had whatever they wanted. They lived in Goshen. Yeah, they had to do some work for the Egyptians. But let's face it, they say, what's on the other side? It's not so great. We ran away from the other land. What do we need it for? It's nice, fertile land there. We'll put up with the housing problems. We'll put up with the congestion. We'll put up with the traffic going to the schools. No big deal. We like where we live. And so they didn't want to leave. And what happens with Metu, and they died. There was a massive plague amongst the Jews at this point. So they died, according to this, during the days of darkness, the 3 days of darkness. Now why they have to do it in the dark? Remember, the Egyptians couldn't leave, they couldn't see, they couldn't do anything. So why they have to do that? Mitzrayim, so that the Mitzrayim would not see b'mapalatam, the plague that they have, and V'yomer, and then say, Avhem Loken, come on, who? They're also being struck like us. In other words, this is not from God. So God didn't want to let them say that. The ode, and further, that's number one. That's the first reason, okay? Number one reason is, why did God have to bring the darkness? The reason God had to bring the darkness was because the Rishaim didn't want to leave. And, by the way, that would have been a big thing, because according to, later on, the next Parsha, we're going to say that 80% of the Jews died in Mitzrayim. 20% walked out, which is a horrible number when you think about it.
Especially when 20% is still something really.
Say again?
Especially when 20% is still like 3 million, 300.
Well, it's 2 million. 2 or 3 million.
2 or 3 million.
Right. So you're looking at, you're looking at a lot of people who died who didn't want to leave Mitzrayim. Now you can claim a lot of things. You can claim that they had a slave mentality. People like to do that. Or what I always argue is, since look, they had land, they had it was like America. They had a lot of stuff going for them. Yeah, like again, it was bad in that they were being subjugated, but that would be throughout their entire history. But this was a fertile land. They figured, we just have to last it out, and we'll do well. They already were there for 210, 20, 30 years. It wasn't that bad. People were, and they were having tremendous population explosions of 6 kids per pregnancy. It's just crazy. So they never had such success in their lives. And at one point, they were really a part of the community. That's what it says. They were everywhere at one point. So I could see that people didn't want to leave. But again, that when even they who saw all the miracles, you would think that they would say, okay, I think it's time. I think it's time. Let's all pack up and go. And yet they didn't. So that's number one reason. They died and they had to be buried. So it's a lot of yeah.
What was the plague?
Whatever the plague was. Doesn't it what the plague? What plague are they in? Darkness.
Darkness. What did the Jews die?
It doesn't say.
Just a plague.
There could have been massive heart attacks all around. Whatever it is, they died. Boom, done. You're through. Okay. When God wants to kill you, when the time's up, time's up. You don't get to argue. Okay, that was number one. The second reason Rashi brings is Yisrael v'ra'u et kaleim. The Jews were going through the Egyptian homes, and they would see the vessels, the Egyptian vessels. Kishiyatsu. Now, when they're going out, what happens? Remember, Hashem tells Moshe to say to the Jewish people, ask the Egyptians for the gold, silver, and everything else, right? So they would now ask the Egyptians for these things. So what happens? Somebody comes to your house, and they say, we'd like all your gold and silver and everything else, and what do you say to them? I don't have that stuff. I wish I did. If I had that, would I be here right now? That sort of question. And so they say, we don't have anything. So so the Jewish person would say, I saw this in your house. And it's right there. Oh. So that when they saw that, now you tell me something. I'll ask you the question. A person comes to you and says, your slave comes to you and says, Master, 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 I'd like to have the gold and your silver. And you say, Tzaddik, I wish I had it. I'm happy. He says, no, for Master. You do. Your gold is behind that picture and your silver is in the cupboard. What does that mean? You could have stolen that. You had 3 days, 7 days in reality. Again, the plagues lasted 7 days. So you had 7 days to clear my house out of all of this stuff, and you didn't take one thing. You just marked where it was. You remembered where it was. For that, the Egyptians had a great respect for the Jews. That's why it says they respect. Later on, it's going to say, and the Jews found favor in their eyes because when they could have taken it, they didn't. Yeah. What?
So if the people who left were somewhere around 2 or 3 million, did the Egyptians not notice the 80% of them who were now?
That's a good question. I've always asked that question. If the question is again, if 80% died, didn't the Egyptians realize that? I've always asked the question. What people would want to answer to me is that the Egyptians would not have known that because. No, because they were slaves, and we didn't really care about the workforce. That's how they would answer that question. I think the question is better than the answer personally, but it's and I never really found a great answer to that. Yeah.
Don't they very much care for the workforce? That's why they didn't want them to leave in the first place.
No, the reason Pharaoh put them into the workforce was so they wouldn't multiply as much. He wanted to control the population.
I know, but people later when they became an essential part of the workforce.
They had plenty of slaves. It wasn't just the Jews.
Oh, okay. Wasn't there a lunch or something that, like, if you take that much of that if take back one of the reasons the Egyptian governors or whatever gave was if you let all these people go, we'll lose out on that's a major decline in population, which is
No, what they said was, what Pharaoh said was, when he's arguing with Moshe, he said, why are you causing them to stop their work? They have a lot of stuff to do, so let them go to work. But he didn't, to argue that he cared about his workforce, I don't think he really cared about the workforce that much. And especially when they were the largest, they were the superpower of that day. They had plenty of people that they could have got to do the work. That's the point of having slavery. So, and on top of that, let's remember one thing. Not all the Jews were doing the work at the same time. They were in shifts. Otherwise, it was taking care of the homes. Who's living in Goshen? If you're really all doing the work, so nobody's living in Goshen. Nobody's attending the flocks. Nobody's doing anything. So the way the Ramban says, to explain his part, is that they were all in different shifts. So again, it wasn't continual. So if it's not continual, what do I care? And on top of that, people were having to get their own. They already slowed down production because he wouldn't give the straw to make the bricks and so on and so forth. We'll have to stop there. But this is a fascinating parshiot that need to be studied very much in depth.